For those of you who don't know us, Business Advantage is an international business-to-business market research, data, and sales development company that has been in business since 1992. And one of our core specialties is in the CAD, CAM, CAE, PLM, 3D printing, virtual and augmented reality sectors, where we have conducted over 650 research and sales development projects in more than 100 countries worldwide over the years. So with that, I'd like to introduce our two speakers today. First off is Chris Turner. Chris is the founder and CEO of Business Advantage, based in our headquarters in the UK, just outside of London. Chris has over 30 years of experience in the CAD, CAM, CAE, PLM, PDM markets, including extensive international experience working with all the major vendors in these spaces in Europe, the Americas, and Asia Pacific. And then Nicola Mansfield. And Nicola is our Director of Market and Competitor Analysis at Business Advantage. Nicola has over 14 years experience running CAD market research, and she and her team run all of the CAD-related research and sales development projects that we do here at Business Advantage. So with that, I would like to hand over to Chris. Chris, over to you.
Thank you, Bill. Good morning or afternoon, everyone. I'd like to add my welcome to that of Bill's. We appreciate the investment of your time in being with us today. I'm going to briefly present the methodology, the composition of the sample, and the early part of the results, and then my colleague Nicola, I'll pass over to her, and she will present the remainder of the results of the survey. So at Business Advantage, the vast majority of the work we do is client-specific. However, we do publish from time to time general research that's available for the market, and over the last 3 years, we've run a CAD trend survey, which looks at a number of key topics in the CAD market, such as 3D modeling, simulation, mobile access to CAD, etc., etc. As we look at these topics, we look at users' awareness of each, their current and projected usage, and perceived importance. And this has enabled us to build a picture of core areas of growth and decline, and thus, as we work with clients in terms of their planning to meet their future needs. One of the most interesting areas from the CAD trend survey has been CAD in the cloud. And so this year, we've run a separate survey solely on this topic. The people that are involved in the survey, first of all, had to be using CAD. And as we asked people their experience with CAD in the cloud, they had to be at least aware of CAD in the cloud, i.e. have some knowledge of it. Of those entering the survey, about 20% screened themselves out, i.e. they did not feel they had sufficient knowledge to answer. So the people answering are CAD users, and they have some knowledge or usage of CAD in the cloud. This presentation will give an overview of findings and headline results, and we will be happy to talk with you on an individual basis, our clients, to look at how we can support your CAD planning using more detailed analysis and information from this year's survey. So we had, following on from the CAD trend survey, we had 203 responses to this online survey that was carried out specifically focusing on CAD usage, current and future, in the cloud. The survey was fielded towards the end of 2016, and the responses are really a global spread across EMEA, the Americas, and APAC, and with good representation across different job roles and from small to large companies. If we just look at the left-hand side of the chart for a moment, about 40% of respondents come from each of EMEA and 40% from the Americas, and about 20% from Asia Pacific, and approximately 40% are small companies, 40% are medium companies, and 20% are large companies. Just so that we all understand what we're meaning when we say small, medium, and large, at the bottom of the screen there's a little key there which says that we've defined small as up to 50 employees, medium between 50 and 1,000, and large companies of over 1,000 employees. If we look at the breakdown of the respondents by job title on the right-hand side of the screen, we can see that designers, engineers in various forms make up about 1/3 of the respondents. About 1 in 4 are technical, engineering, design, management. About 1 in 3 are CAD or IT or project management personnel. And 1 in 7 are senior executives, managing director, CEOs, general managers, etc. Now, I've mentioned that respondents come from a range of industry sectors. They indeed spread right across industry. They work, as we've touched on already, in a range of different company sizes. But across all the respondents, the vast majority had at least some influence on decision-making for CAD solutions. Looking at just summarizing the industry sector, about 1 in 3, almost 1 in 4 are based in the AEC space, and about 1 in 3 in manufacturing. There's a spread on the company size from the very small 1 to 5 employees to the large, over 1,000 employees. If we take the companies with more than 1,000 employees aside and just left them to one side for a moment, outside of these companies, the average company size is about 200 employees. So it's a reasonable size medium company that's the typical respondent. The largest companies, those with more than 1,000 employees, are particularly represented in the Americas, then in EMEA, and a smaller percentage come from Asia Pacific. Half of the APAC companies interviewed are the upper end of medium, the 251 to 1,000 employees. So while fewer APAC companies fell into the larger category, a good number of them were in the upper tier of the medium size. As I've already touched on, the majority of people that responded have at least some decision-making capability, i.e. less than 1 in 16, or about 6%, say they have no influence. 2/3 of those responding are decision makers rather than influencers. And if we look at the decision makers by company size, perhaps unsurprisingly, most of the final decision makers, or many of them I should say, are likely to be found in the smaller companies. We asked companies what software they're currently using, and we asked them if they're on their primary software that they use, and also their secondary or additional software usage. On the left-hand side, we see the primary CAD software used by vendor, and we see that 6 out of 10 people are using Autodesk products. This actually is even higher in the secondary packages, but they obviously have a strong showing as a company. At an overarching level, there are similar levels of package usage across regions, i.e. there's no dramatic difference by region. Primary Autodesk usage is particularly strong in the medium-sized companies, the 50 to 1,000 employees, and in the AEC sector, and is driven by AutoCAD and Civil 3D, or AutoCAD Civil 3D. 41% of all the software used is AutoCAD or AutoCAD LT, coming from the respondents. Dassault, again unsurprisingly, is significantly more used in the manufacturing sector, and SolidWorks has the highest usage in the Americas, 17%, with 12% in APAC, and CATIA is much stronger in EMEA from the respondents that we have. The PTC users were almost exclusively Creo. We had just 1% of respondents using Pro-E, and again is used significantly more in larger companies, and this is reflected in the secondary usage as well. So we asked people a number of questions about where they were in their evaluation, use, and implementation of CAD in the cloud solutions. So just 1 in 10 respondents currently use CAD in the cloud, with a further 6% currently implementing a solution. Another 12% of the sample are considering implementing a CAD in the cloud solution in the short to medium term. Current usage and consideration is similar across regions, but APAC is significantly more likely than EMEA or Americas to be currently in a phase of implementation of CAD in the cloud solutions. 1 in 5 of respondents are still evaluating the possibility of CAD in the cloud. This is significantly higher in APAC than in EMEA, for example, or the Americas. EMEA companies are most likely to have basic awareness, however, with no further investigation or consideration having taken place at this time. 1 in 5, approximately, companies have considered and currently have rejected the possibility of CAD in the cloud, and 1/3 of respondents have not moved beyond basic awareness of CAD in the cloud at this time. The next area we asked about was an unprompted or spontaneous awareness of CAD software vendors or developers that come to mind when you think about cloud-based CAD solutions or CAD in the cloud. As many of the users that completed the survey are Autodesk users, Autodesk comes out as the top-of-mind vendor for providers of CAD in the cloud solutions, and particularly high mentions for AutoCAD, which is perhaps unsurprising again because so many of the respondents were Autodesk users. 1/4 mention Onshape. This is unprompted or spontaneous awareness of a CAD in the cloud provider, and just 1 in 10 Dassault at the moment, which is driven by mentions of SolidWorks. We next went on to ask about cloud infrastructure, and we asked what people were using, the infrastructure they were using for CAD in the cloud, and what they plan to use for CAD in the cloud solutions. And in the questionnaire, we provided some definitions so that we were all hopefully talking about the same thing as people responded. And these were the definitions that we used that you can see on the screen. If we now look at the results, the proportionate split among people who are using or plan to use, implement CAD in the cloud solutions breaks down as follows. Almost half the people plan on using a private cloud. It's more popular, especially in APAC, followed by the Americas and EMEA, and is also, again, as one would expect, over-indexing for medium and large companies, i.e. the larger companies with an IT department that can run their own private cloud. More companies are either using or plan to use a private cloud in those size of companies, and also is higher in the manufacturing sector. The community cloud has a very low showing, as you can see from the chart, and the next most popular to private is the public cloud, and then finally a hybrid cloud. We next asked a question about what benefits has your organization gained, plans to gain, by using cloud-based CAD software. So again, there were no answers provided. These responses are unprompted or spontaneous. And as you can see, the respondents, the better collaboration and cost savings were perceived to be the main benefits of CAD in the cloud solutions that they've either received or expect to receive by implementing them. 1/3 of the respondents, as mentioned here, felt that there were no benefits. Now that may be because they haven't perceived there to be any benefits, but it may also be because they have limited knowledge at this time and may indicate a further need for education in terms of all the benefits that are available by using CAD solutions in the cloud. The perceptions of the benefits or the lack of them, in some cases, are similar across the subgroups of the respondents or the sample by region, sector, or company size. No particular significant differences were shown. We next asked a similar question, but this time prompted. We gave a big list of potential benefits or attributes that might be associated with CAD in the cloud solutions. So these are prompted, and we asked people to rate these on a 1 to 10 scale, where 1 is no good at all and 10 is wonderful, if you will. So the strength of the association with a particular attribute. The mobility, ease of access from anywhere, is most strongly associated with CAD in the cloud. The ease of updates and collaboration. Collaboration, if you recall, was a key benefit mentioned spontaneously following up after the mobile ease of access to CAD. Generally, there were stronger associations across all attributes in APAC than in EMEA, for example. People were more aware in APAC, although the sample is relatively small, than in EMEA, and also in Americas. And perhaps this reflects better knowledge of the solutions in this particular region. So previously, we asked people, the respondents, to rate what they associate with CAD in the cloud solutions. And the next area we went on to ask is, to what extent do you value these attributes or benefits of CAD in the cloud solutions? So as well as being most associated with CAD in the cloud, the ease of access, mobility, is also the most valued attribute of such solutions. Similar levels of value are seen across regions. So although respondents in APAC know more, it seems, about CAD in the cloud, they do not necessarily value the attributes more highly, which is interesting. So they seem more knowledgeable on these topics, but value them no more highly than people in EMEA or the Americas. But you can see quite clearly here, these are the attributes of CAD in cloud solutions that the respondents value the most. Again, on this 1 to 10 scale, 1 being limited value and 10 being of excellent value. So I'm now going to hand over to Nicola, who's going to present the remainder of the findings. And we're going to start off with looking at the association of attributes and the value that we derive from.
Thanks, Chris. This chart is a little crowded, but I'm hopeful that you can read this. But what we've aimed to do here is to plot the level of association of key statements with CAD in the cloud, and that's plotted on the x-axis, against the value to the organization on the y-axis. And the dotted blue lines across the center show the average score for each question. Overall, we feel this provides a picture of where providers of CAD in the cloud could focus. And for example, the top left-hand quadrant shows attributes which are valued above average, but currently have a lower level of association with CAD in the cloud. And this includes things like flexibility to use sophisticated software, reduced operating costs, access to agile, adaptive, and flexible infrastructure, and being able to pay only for what we use. These are all valued, but not currently associated with CAD in the cloud. So really they're providing an opportunity for marketing departments possibly to communicate about them as a potential points of differentiation. The top right-hand quadrant shows areas which have current levels of higher association with CAD in the cloud, and respondents also see higher value to their organization. So these may be key areas for sales teams to focus on, for example, and include things like higher mobility and access from anywhere, ease of software updates, improving collaboration, and reducing capital expenditure, so there's no need for upfront capital investment. We then also asked respondents to rate their level of concern with a number of issues linked to CAD in the cloud. And this chart shows the mean score of a 1 to 10 scale, where 1 is not concerned at all and 10 is extremely concerned. The highest levels of concern are expressed for issues of security and privacy of data. And this has been a finding that's cropped up and that's been identified across multiple projects that Business Advantage has conducted for a number of CAD vendors. Interestingly, though, there's little difference in levels of concern for data stored outside of the respondent's country and data that's stored within their country. Also of note are concerns about an increased dependency on vendors, possibly leading to price increases. And that had a mean score of 7.3. It's an area that perhaps CAD vendors need to communicate about to allay fears and offer price commitments for the future. Overall, levels of concern are generally higher in the Americas region, more so than in EMEA or APAC, and this is also the case in larger companies. We asked what proportion of CAD software within your company is cloud-based. And of those currently using or implementing CAD in the cloud, 36% of their software is cloud-based currently. And these people are more likely to be based in APAC and also in the utilities and government sectors. Currently, 2/3 of respondents say that their organizations don't host any CAD in the cloud, work in the cloud. And this is significantly higher in the EMEA region at 74%, and the Americas at 69%, more so than APAC, which is just 27%. The expectations for respondents is that within the next 5 years, 60% of their CAD software will be CAD-based. And almost all respondents in APAC see this as their future. In fact, only 2% of APAC respondents say that no CAD work will be hosted in the cloud in 5 years' time. So there's a clear trend here. Over 1/3 of respondents think that CAD in the cloud can be used for any CAD-related activities. And again, this is actually higher in the APAC region, where respondents appear to be more open to CAD in the cloud solutions. There are a few areas of concern, and 16% think that conceptual design is less suited to CAD in the cloud. Drawing and designing are considered less likely to be suitable for CAD in the cloud, but only around 1 in 10 think that this is the case. And again, they cite security issues as their main concern. Desktop workstations and PCs are still the most generally used for CAD work and also for CAD in the cloud, despite the mobile opportunities which CAD in the cloud clearly affords. And it seems that looking ahead, people expect to continue using desk-based tools. There's significantly higher use of mobile workstations in the Americas region, about 24%, and virtual CAD workstations appear more in APAC, about 32%, when compared to other regions. But in all regions, overall desktop is still the most used. Smaller companies, unsurprisingly, have a higher usage of laptops and tablets. This chart shows a mean score based on a rating of 1 to 10, where 1 means not at all important and 10 means extremely important. Despite the majority of respondents still using desktops to work on CAD in the cloud, the importance of working remotely via mobile devices is clearly recognised, with collaboration and review being considered the most important activities to have remote access to. As with other measures, higher levels of importance are seen in the APAC region, and PLM is particularly important for the larger companies, which is really unexpected. There's generally a strong agreement that accessing CAD in the cloud via mobile devices is not really an option yet. The usability of smartphones and tablets for CAD design has been questioned. And again, this is something that's come up across a number of projects that we've recently completed for a number of vendors. The lowest endorsement is given for mobile access to CAD being the future, but this has previously seen significantly higher in APAC at a mean score of 7, more so than EMEA, a mean score of 5.6, or the Americas, which was 5.7. And again, it's further demonstrating the more developed status of CAD in the cloud in the APAC region. When we asked about who would typically use cloud-based CAD software now and in the future, it's really the design unit, engineers, and external collaborators that are mentioned most frequently. Just under a third think that all these job functions would use cloud-based CAD now or in the future. And use by the design unit is particularly strong within the Americas region and also within smaller companies. So looking to the future, when asked how respondents would prefer to pay for CAD in the cloud solutions, the majority felt that usage-based payment would be a better option. It's showing here at 40%. And there's particular interest in usage-based payment in the APAC region. One key area for CAD vendors is that despite the interest in the benefits of CAD in the cloud, most respondents do not see their organizations completely switching to a cloud-based solution alone. At best, CAD in the cloud is likely to be combined with on-premise work. And this is the case across all regions, despite APAC's higher buy-in to CAD in the cloud generally. And that concludes our presentation for today, and I'll now hand over to Bill.
Thank you, Nicola. Appreciate that. And what I'd like to do now is we're going to open the floor for question and answer session. So we can, if you have any questions that you'd like to ask, please go ahead and enter those into the chat pane, the question pane on the right side of your screen, and we will try to get to as many of those as possible. But before we do that, I just wanted to remind you that at the end of today's session to please just take a moment or two before you sign off to let us know how you valued the presentation today and how we can make do a better job even with future webinars. And we do review each comment that comes through and very much appreciate and take each one seriously. I also wanted to mention that we're doing something new this year with this survey, that each year following our survey presentations, we typically receive a number of questions asking if we can analyze the data to answer specific detailed questions that a number of vendors have. And in order to be able to address more of those questions and requests this year we're partnering with John Petty Research and are producing a professional paid report that will delve into much greater depth than we can go into in any webinar. And that report's going to analyze survey findings by areas such as use in manufacturing versus AEC, looking at company size and region, where we have enough data in each of these areas. And it will include also a much deeper look into hardware trends for CAD in the cloud use. Analyzing the data in a number of ways that should be useful for product development people, product managers, as well as sales and informing sales and marketing decisions. So we'll be launching that report in May, and just wanted to let you know that it will be coming, and we'll make all of you aware of that and see how that goes this year. But we're looking forward to launching that and offering that this year. So like I said, we're going to open now for Q&A, and please do enter your questions in that chat window on the side of the screen. I see there are a number that have come in. Also, I wanted to thank many of you who submitted questions over the past few days prior to the presentation. Some of them were beyond the scope, as you can perhaps see, of what we addressed in the presentation today, but the ones that were in scope we'll answer, and we will come back to you on each of those, even if it's just to let you know that it was out of scope. So with that, I would like to kick off here. Let's see, Chris and Nicola. Perhaps this might be useful for everyone. Can you just give a little bit more definition of in the cloud and what we mean by CAD in the cloud?
Yes, thanks, Bill. Yeah, we did define this for respondents. We said the following: for the purposes of this survey, we are defining cloud-based CAD as a model where software applications are delivered to the user over the internet, i.e. software is not stored on the company's network, desktop PC, laptop, etc. Often CAD users will also save their files externally, i.e. on the cloud. So that was the definition that we provided, and there are lots of different definitions, but that was the definition we used and informed the respondents of in preparation for their answers.
Great, thanks, Chris. Do you want to talk any more about private versus public versus hybrid, or? think we're good on that?
Well, if there's particular interest in it, I mean, as I mentioned, we did define that these different terms in the survey, and we found that the majority of people were using private cloud for use on for the CAD in the cloud solutions. And we defined private cloud as a cloud computing platform that is implemented within the corporate firewall under the control of the IT department. And the majority of people were using or plan to use that. Community cloud, as I mentioned previously, which is infrastructure that is shared among several organizations from a specific group with common computing concerns, that had the least usage. But public cloud and hybrid cloud, public cloud computing environment that is shared with a number of other clients or tenants, and a hybrid cloud where you've got a cloud computing environment in which an organization provides and manages some resources in-house and has others provided externally. Both of those receive about half the usage of a private cloud, but nonetheless were significant types of infrastructure.
Perfect. Thanks, Chris. And just kind of a follow-on with that, did we distinguish between data in the cloud versus CAD apps being run from the cloud?
In the questionnaire, we did not. And in the definition about CAD in the cloud, we mentioned that that the application is delivered over the internet, and often CAD users will save their files externally, i.e. on the cloud. So I think it was understood that we were looking at both, but we did not specifically ask we didn't break questions down by the application or storage. We took it as a whole.
Very good. Thank you. Another question just came in from Glenn. Do all of the CAD vendors used by the respondents have cloud-based solutions that they offer? And then a comment that he'd noticed a high number of Autodesk and Onshape respondents, but do all of the vendors on the list, do we know, offer cloud-based solutions?
Well, we asked, there were a lot of solutions. There was a long tail, if you will, of sometimes one or two people using different solutions. We didn't go through every solution. We asked people what was their current primary CAD software, and we asked them what were their secondary software packages. Those did not have to be cloud-based. They could be stored. They could be used local applications. We also asked about the people's perceptions of leading vendors of CAD in the cloud solutions, and Autodesk and Onshape, as was mentioned, came out highly there. So we don't actually know the answer to that. We haven't been through the sort of long tail of applications. It may well be that some of them are not cloud-based applications, because it did ask, what application software are you using? It didn't differentiate between local or cloud-based.
Very good. Thank you. I don't think we have an answer to this, but I'll just, in case I missed something on it, Chris, any indication of the split amongst the public cloud providers, Amazon Web Services, Azure, Google, etc.?
No, we did not ask for suppliers of the cloud-based services, so we have no information on that from the survey. But I think other work that we have done, I think we have looked at providers of cloud services. So yeah, we have done some private client work looking at that specifically. And obviously we can talk to someone individually about that, but we did not cover that as part of the general survey.
Okay, very good, thank you. And do we have the ability out of these results to drill down into into sectors and sub-markets, AEC versus civil or manufacturing, for example?
Yes, we do. And in the professional report that you mentioned earlier, we would break it down further. The AEC, as I mentioned, is about 40%, and we can definitely analyze by that. We've got about 80 respondents, and manufacturing just slightly under 80. So that's a reasonable sample size to do further analysis on. So that is possible, yes. Analysis within, say, the AEC sector is unlikely because of the sample size would be too small for reliable results, although you know, some indicative data may be able to be gleaned.
Okay, very good, thank you. So I'm just scrolling through these. There's some combination of comments and questions here, which are great. And again, if we don't get to you live today, we will follow up with you privately and individually after today's session. Another one that came in actually, I think yesterday, would be, do we have any indication if users prefer a web browser based or a thin client system such as iOS, Android, etc. based cloud system?
We don't, I'm afraid. It was pretty broad about you know, desktop or laptop or mobile device. We didn't go into more detail, I'm afraid. So that is outside the scope of this general survey. But again, we have done work on that previously, and what people are using and what they would like to use to access cloud-based CAD. So that might be something we could talk to someone about individually and see if we're able to help.
Okay, very good. And maybe the question just came in and may tie into an earlier question that was asked as well. So part of it is, well, the question is, why was your audience response smaller this year than in last year's survey? And I think in last year's survey, you may be referring to the Global CAD Trends survey. So this one seems to have a smaller response. And maybe at that, you could also touch back on another question about reminding us of how people were screened to participate in this survey.
Sure. Okay. So this year we did this survey, CAD in the Cloud, as well as CAD Trends. We just haven't published CAD Trends yet. It is being finished off, and the sample is bigger for that. We go into a lot of topics, 13 or 14 topics in some detail, and we need to do that and to break those down and analyze by industry, job title, region. We need a larger sample size. So that's typically what we've done. This was is really a subset, but expanded from the CAD Trends, and we've broadened the topic, obviously, but we didn't plan to go into quite the same level of detail of analysis on the CAD in the Cloud. It was our first iteration of this particular survey.
Perfect, thank you. Sorry, just looking through. Well, there are a few, we have a number of other questions and comments, but some of them are a little bit outside of the scope of what I think we can address today. So let me see if there are any final questions coming in, and if not, I think we will be able to wrap up for today. Any final questions? Okay. Sorry, 1 second. One just came in. Oh, so it is an interesting question. I had that same question, George, the other day. That, you know, are the results biased by the fact that people were screened out who had no knowledge of CAD in the cloud, and the impact on this survey. I don't know if I phrased that well, Chris, but did you get the gist of it?
Yeah, I do. And yes, I mean, there is bias in the sample. We only spoke to people that are using CAD, and they either had to be using, implementing, planning to implement, or at the very least aware of CAD and the cloud. As I think I mentioned earlier, about 20% of the total people that entered the survey, once we got into asking them about their experience level and understanding of CAD in the cloud, 20% of them said, I don't know, I don't have sufficient knowledge. So the sample is not a general sample. And I also saw another question about the size of the sample, so I'll try to cover that as well. So it's not a random sample. We have deliberately skewed it towards people that are CAD users and people that are using, implementing, plan to implement, or are aware of CAD solutions. And 203 responses at a total level is statistically reliable. The answers given at a 95% confidence limit. So, you know, if you ran the survey 20 times, 19 times out of 20, you would get the same answer. Where answers become less reliable, of course, is where you subdivide and subdivide again. And we've tried not to do that other than in very broad terms between AEC and manufacturing, for example, or by global region, a little bit by company size as well. So yeah, but 203 is a perfectly valid sample size. And there are tables that if the person that asked the question, if they're interested, we can send you a table afterwards, which will give you by the sample size for different percentage answers on different questions, the plus and minus, you know, 3%, 4%, 5%, whatever it is. Where we've gone through the data, a number of times we would have said there is no significant difference, and the significant difference is exactly that statistically one percentage may be 36 and the other may be 39 or 41, but statistically there is no significant difference. So the only differences we brought out today were those that are significant at the size of sample that we were talking about.
Wonderful. Thank you. George, thanks for the spelling correction. Got it. And with that, I think we're going to wrap up today's session. I'd like to thank you all very much again for attending and participating in all the active questions coming in, a lot of questions coming through. We will send out a link to the recording as soon as it's posted, and we'll then after that send out a link to allow you to download this presentation. Thanks again for joining us, and enjoy the rest of your day. Take care. Bye now.
Thank you, everyone.